It's time for Fantasy Alarm's Front Office Insights. The team preview today, the Baltimore Orioles. Let's say it. It's one of the more exciting teams actually coming up in the ranks. They've rebuilt this team from the bottom to almost the top here right now. And we got some great stuff that we want to share with everybody for fantasy purposes here. So let me bring in my man, the GM, Jim Bowden. Jim, the Orioles will start off with, I guess, how about their off season? Did they make improvements?
Minor improvements, and kind of disappointed the Oriole fan base who was expecting a big splash in improvement. They did play on a lot of second tier and third tier starting pitching, weren't able to land any really big names in free agency. They did sign Kyle Gibson, the former Philly, to a 1-year, $10 million deal. They brought back reliever Michael Givens, who used to be an Oriole, at 1 year, $5 million. And they signed second baseman Adam Frazier to a 1-year, $8 million deal. Really nothing that moves the needle for me in terms of fantasy, or reality for that matter. They made a trade to get James McCann to give them a backup catcher, allow them to take their stud rookie catcher Adley Rutschman and give him days off when needed, or let him DH so that they got a good catcher in McCann. They also acquired Ryan O'Hearn in a deal from Kansas City for cash considerations, and they traded for left-handed starter Cole Irvin in a trade that sent Darrell Hernandez to Oakland. So those were the moves that they made in the offseason, but this is a team, Howard, building from within and doing it through the draft, doing it through development, doing it through international signings, and so really, to me, a little bit disappointing they weren't able to add a big free agent or two to the young group they have coming, but perhaps next offseason they'll make those moves that are necessary.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not really sure. I mean, where did you see like a bigger splash for them? Did you? I mean, I think because they're rebuilding or they've been building for so long, I didn't really expect them to do anything too huge. Was there a name rumored that I'm missing?
Yeah, I mean, look, we didn't think they would be able to play when Verlander and Rodon, the very best pitchers, but we did think that second tier, which they were very aggressive in trying to persuade, but that second tier that includes pitchers like Jameson Taillon, who ended up signing with the Chicago Cubs, they did try to make a run at that level starting pitcher, and the best they could end up bringing home is Kyle Gibson. So I think they're a little disappointed that way, but, look, I don't think it's the end of the world. This team is about the prospects that are there. We saw them make a big move last year. I think they're going to be competitive again this year. I think they'll be kind of a contender, maybe a pretender, but I think they're a year away from being really good. And I think you'll see, based on my conversation with GM Mike Elias the last time I talked to him, sounds like he's going to be aggressive in promoting more of his prospects during the season. And we'll get to that later in this segment when we talk about the rookies and we talk about their farm system depth.
Sounds good. I'm excited. All right, let's start off. Let's go to the position players here. Let's go around the infield and see what we got. Adley Rutschman. I mean, how do you not love Adley Rutschman with what he brings to the table? Ryan Mountcastle at first. They bring in the veteran Adam Frazier at second base. I don't know if he's going to platoon with Ramon Urias in a lefty-righty situation there. Gunnar Henderson, the hot rookie, everybody loves him. He's at third, and then Jorge Mateo, the guy who steals a bunch of bases but never gets on base for some reason, over at short. From a fantasy perspective here, Jim, I know Rutschman and Henderson have to be high on your targets.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I look at Rutschman. I got him second on my rankings for catchers, only behind JT Realmuto. But I would argue that Rutschman will be the best catcher for the next 10 years in reality and fantasy. He would be my number one guy. But for now, you got to give it to Realmuto, just because this is a guy that did 20-20 last year, home runs and stolen bases. The only other catcher in baseball history to do that was Hall of Famer Pudge Rodriguez. So it's quite an accomplishment, and it means a lot in fantasy. So I'd probably go Realmuto 1, Rutschman 2. Gunnar Henderson probably going to start at shortstop with Urias at third, Frazier at second, Mountcastle at first. And then Mateo will play defensively at short, and then Henderson will move to third at times. But to your point, I think both Rutschman and Henderson will cover at the All-Star game in Seattle this July. Both of them are studs. I love both players. When we talk about Corbin Carroll and we talk about Jordan Walker, Gunnar Henderson's right with those guys. They're the three best prospects in baseball right now, and so we got to make sure we understand how good he is and what he can deliver to the table. Mountcastle has power if you need home runs. I like to do better because the batting average is low, but the home runs are real.
Right. Yeah. Agreed on that front there. All right, let's talk in the outfield and actually the DH spot. So Austin Hayes in left, Cedric Mullins in center, Anthony Santander over in right. Kyle Stowers is the, or is it Stowers? Is it Stowers or is it Stowers, Jim? Stowers. See, I should have just trusted my instincts there. Kyle Stowers looks like the DH from my left hand. Oh, left hand. He doesn't even have anybody to platoon with there. So looks like Stowers is going to be the starting DH.
Well, and Rutschman's going to DH some, and you're going to see Mountcastle DH some, and you're going to see Hayes DH some. They're going to rotate around a little bit there. Mullins is the guy that I love. He's a year removed from 30 homers, 30 steals. Had a little bit of a dip last year in power, not in stolen bases. Good fantasy player. I think he bounces back. I think he has a really good year here. I do like Santander. I do. He's decent. Not one I'm going to overdraft, but Mullins is a guy that I really, really like.
Well, I mean, who doesn't love a nice, strong power speed combo? You got to take him early if you want him, but I think he's just an absolute fantastic bat to get to. Their depth in the, over here. I mean, I'm seeing guys like Franchi Cordero. I'm seeing Ryan McKenna. I mean, they really don't have a whole lot of depth. Should we talk their depth when we talk about what's in the farm?
Yeah, I mean, because the depth on the bench isn't much. James McCann, Ramon Urias, and Ryan McKenna is really not worth our conversation. Should we get to the rotation?
Please. Kyle Gibson, Cole Irvin, Dean Creamer, Grayson Rodriguez, Tyler Wells. That looks like the potential starting five. You got Kyle Bradish and Austin Voth and Mike Baumann as possibilities beyond that. Would you trust any of these guys?
Grayson Rodriguez is the best pitching prospect in baseball. He and Andrew Painter of the Phillies are the two very, very best that are out there. Rodriguez is going to develop into an ace. He's going to be one of the faces of the Orioles franchise and going to be one of the best starting pitchers. I mean, his ceiling is that of Garrett Cole. Like, it's that level. That's the stuff that you got. So I think it can be as early as opening day. I know Mike Elias is very aware of the rule that if you have Rookie of the Year, you get a first-round pick. They love those first-round picks in Baltimore. Elias went as far as to tell me he's rooting for him to make the team. Not only is he rooting for him, but he gets to decide if he makes the team. So all he's got to do is hold his own, and he'll be there opening day. So I'm a big fan of Grayson Rodriguez. I'll have shares of him. Probably won't have shares of anyone else. I know there are a lot of baseball people that like Irvin in that trade. But, to me, more back of the rotation innings kind of eater there. I do like John Means, who's on the injured list. He'll be back at some point during the season. I think he's kind of like a sleeper coming off the injured list. I would take him late in drafts. He'll be undrafted
he's
in
not
some
coming
leagues.
Back till the second half is the last I saw.
That is correct. Yeah. And I would take a chance at the end of a draft. If you're gonna, I saw some draft today in the 37th round, someone took Jason Hayward. I would take John Means over Jason Hayward for me.
John Means over Jason. Pretty much anybody over Jason Hayward.
Yeah, that too. But
well.
Means in the second half of the year might be a guy.
Okay.
Bullpen, you got Bautista, Perez, Baker, Givens that we talked about. Bautista gets the saves, power arm.
Yeah, dealing with a shoulder issue right now, so he's been sitting out. Perez and Baker have been the guys that you would expect to share there. How confident are you in drafting a Felix Bautista? I mean, when you look at how high closers are definitely going pretty quickly this year. I think Bautista is right there at the maybe like the top of the third tier, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I'd put him in the fourth tier myself.
Okay.
I don't like closers. I hate closers.
I know you do.
You're asking the wrong guy here.
Okay,
I'm okay if you want to reach for Diaz or Clase, but after that, I'll take all those eighth-inning guys and beat you.
One day, Jim, there's going to be a closer out there that you're going to fall in love with.
And
I'm going to be here to
when that happens.
every time you draft him.
Yeah. Okay.
Can't wait. I can't wait.
Let's get to the farm system.
Let's
real
get
quick.
to the farm system.
Yeah, because it's exciting. So we've got Rutschman and Henderson, who both Howard and I think will be at the All-Star game in Seattle. Like, we both love both of those guys, and if you can get them, grab them. But their farm system. Oh, and Grayson Rodriguez. Sorry. So those three guys are stars. Like, they're star core. But their farm system is loaded too. Colton Cowser, big hit again today. Mike Elias said we're going to see him in the big leagues this year. Jordan Westberg, probably see him in the big leagues this year. There's another infielder. You know, they've got Adam Frazier kind of holding the fort down, or Mateo or Urias. But Westberg's not far behind, so you're going to see him in the same infield there with Gunnar Henderson at some point this year. Jackson Holliday is the number one pick overall in the draft last year. He's going to be a stud. Dynasty League only, because you're not going to see him in the big leagues this year. But Heston Jerstad will probably get to the big leagues. Another outfielder like Cowser. They got some outfielders that can hit, and then those are two of them right there in Cowser and Jerstad. And look, I like DL Hall. I just don't like him as a starter. I actually like him as a back-end reliever. So I'm not really sure what the directions are for him right now. I'm not really sure what roadmap they've given him. But certainly I like the arm a lot. As I said, I like it better in the pen, though, than starting. I'm not convinced he's going to be able to start.
Yeah, I think the last thing I saw in DL Hall was that they were looking to stretch him out for the start of the regular season, but kind of put those plans on the back burner, and I think they were kind of leaving him more in that middle kind of a way there. Somebody who's not really going to interest you very much in fantasy. How about that? We can put it the final stamp on that.
Right.
All right. So talk to me here about Mike Elias. Listen, the Orioles last year. I don't know if everybody realized it. They won 83 games. I mean, yes, they finished fourth in the division, but they still won 83 games. So it was a better than 500 season. I feel like the team looks better this year, Jim. Granted, it's obviously you're sitting behind the Yankees and the Jays and the Rays. It's a tough spot to be in here, but if Elias sees that the Orioles are kind of nipping at the heels of that wild card, how aggressive would he be?
Well, I think Mike Elias will be aggressive. I think the question we should ask is, will John Angelos, the owner of the team, allow him to go out and spend some money here? And I don't know the answer to that. We heard a lot of noise from Mike Elias on what they were going to do this past offseason. He said it multiple times that they were ready to play in free agency. They were ready to trade for some big contracts, and they just never did. So talk is one thing, the walk is more important. I don't know what to expect. I know at last year's deadline, they were very aggressive. They made a lot of trades. They didn't trade to win. They traded for the future, right? When they traded Trey Mancini and they traded Lopez to Minnesota. I mean, a lot of the trades were more about the future. Even though they were contending, they knew they weren't good enough yet. So I don't know what direction they go at the deadline, to be honest, Howard. I think it's tough to predict.
All right. Well, we can cross that bridge when we get to it. As we wrap up our team preview here of the Baltimore Orioles, Jim, I ask you always for one fantasy sleeper, one fantasy bust from the team. Who do you got?
Yeah, my sleeper is Gunnar Henderson, because I think he's even way better than where he's being drafted. I don't think people realize how good he can be. And then my bust is Kyle Gibson. I mean, they gave him 1 year, $10 million. And a lot of people are thinking of him as their number one opening day starter. I'm looking at him as a fifth starter at very best, and for the Phillies, he wasn't even a fifth starter. He was in the bullpen in the postseason. I think he's going to be a bust for them.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of Kyle Gibson either. All right, well, there you go, folks. In a nutshell, the Baltimore Orioles. We always thank you for tuning in to Front Office Insight. That's what makes this Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide so good, is you get all of these front office insights. You get all the work that we've got. Go to fantasyalarm.com. And get your free copy of the Fantasy Alarm MLB Draft Guide, which also comes with the always coveted cheat sheet.